Welcome everybody to our EETech Goldstein Group webinar. We're going to be presenting some really interesting information that EETech has to share with us from its 2024 Engineering Insights Report. I've known this, followed this project for a few decades now, so we're really excited to share this with you today. So let me just run through a brief introduction of my colleague and partner in crime, David Blaza. David and I presented this last year, and we're real excited to have him back to share this with everybody again. Just a little bit of background on David. David is the Global Sales Director at EETech Media. They are a longtime partner of our agency and many others in the EE engineering community. And as you'll see, that they're a true powerhouse around the world in digital media today. And that's one of the things that I'm excited about with this webinar, is that it is a global study. David's a seasoned technology and media executive with international experience in sales, outbound marketing, and managing teams. He's worked in sales management, acquisitions, business development, and new product development for the B2B tech industry. He has a passion for bringing new technology to market and establishing strong partner ecosystems. And as one of those ecosystems, I can attest to that. Just a little bit of a background on me. I am Joel Goldstein. I'm president of Goldstein Group Communications. I've spent my career building engineer-to-engineer digital lead gen and branding programs for products that have some degree of technical or engineered content to them. As an agency, we specialize in working with companies that must navigate what's known as the complex sale. And we define that as buyer journeys consisting of large teams, long sales cycles, and multiple sales channels that all have to be managed at once. And so with that, I'm going to begin walking through the presentation, and I'll turn it over to my partner in crime here, David.
Thank you, Joel. So this is our second annual. We did it last year for the first time, and I'm happy to report there's some interesting new changes. So this is going to be not a repeat of last year. So I think, as Joel mentioned, we're EETech. We're one of the leading media companies in the electronics space, but a lot of people don't realize there are two sides to our business. We have some of the largest media brands in electronics, but also the other side of our business we call digital presence. We do work for a lot of our customers on their websites, data, and e-commerce. It's just so people know that we have a view into both sides, the customer's website and also our own websites. So that's who we are, Joel. Next slide. You want to
do who we are, or should I do this?
Well, you should do that.
We're a 30-year-old agency, as I mentioned, not only the complex sale, but we do focus on the technical or engineered content side of life. We are very focused on the rapidly changing digital marketing landscape. So as a result of that, we're staffed with people that we call hyper specialists. We have people who only do organic search, only do paid search, only do web UX, only do content, just a variety of all the digital marketing disciplines. We have a passion and a belief in marketing ROI and measurability, and that's why we have our tagline called Measurably Better Marketing.
Okay, let's get going. Right. Okay, let's jump into the research. We have an arm of our organization led by Tara Gledhill's on this call. So we have been doing this survey for 8 years now, and it is a global survey. In fact, we have a special version just for Chinese EEs. So this survey was translated in 14 languages. So it's probably the biggest single global survey in electronics. So that's the background on that. And there's, as you can see on the slide, these are the cohort of respondents by electrical engineers, control engineers. We're going to be particularly looking at electrical engineers today. Joel, if you want to go to the next slide. In total, we had 4,500 respondents. And so here's the statistical confidence intervals at the bottom. So if we had more than 2,000, plus minus 2%. So just keep in your head as you're going through this, statistically how relevant they are is, if there's 1,000 respondents, plus or minus 3, if it's 600, plus or minus 4, just so you have, like any good piece of research, you've got to understand the methodology.
One of the reasons our agency is so pleased with this survey, that we use it so much, is because of that 4,500 number response base, and because of its global reach. For those of you who are my fellow marketers, you know that when we try to do an email survey on our own, typically more often than not, we'll get 10, 50, or if it's wildly successful, 100 back. So a survey that includes 4,500 respondents is just magnificent. And that's one of the reasons that we put so much weight behind this project.
Yep. Okay. So during this presentation, we're going to look at 4 aspects of electrical engineering. Look at the engineers themselves, the design process, sourcing, and then we have a little bit on rankings, but we have such a large audience on this webinar. I don't think I'm going to dive into that deeply, but we've got some fun things to get us going. So so this is where the respondent of that 4,500 respondents, the vast majority came from North America, but we have European respondents, India, Asia Pac, Middle East. So that is the total respondent base really is global. And this is, this is the industries they worked in: manufacturing, automotive, utilities, consumer, mil-aero, energy. We have pretty much every industry where electronic design engineers work. And Joel, I think if you put your mouse on any of those, it'll pop up when people get a copy. They could be able to see. I think there you go. It'll show you what percentage of the respondents came from which industry. That's this is a program called Infogram. It's got it's better than PowerPoint, in my opinion. Anyway, all right. So Joel, yeah, thanks. And then company size, we had, 63% were in companies under 500 employees, because obviously there's a lot more small companies and large companies, but we did have 37% of the respondents for companies over 500 employees. So, we've got a balance of small and large companies. So that was nice.
Well, and I was particularly pleased to see 37% coming from large companies. When you do research like this, that's typically the area that's most difficult to get a response from. So you don't want the survey results skewed to smaller, teeny, under 10 employee companies. So I think that having 37% coming from larger 500 employee plus organizations is a big benefit of this.
Yep. So here's one of the key parts of our research is we do look at the engineering cohort by their years of experience in the industry. So as you can see, we just have the biggest cohort we have is 6 to 14 years, 29%, but very closely behind that is the what we call next gen engineers, which are those with 1 to 5 years experience. So it's obviously a lot of people are very interested. A lot of you on the call will be very interested in what new, engineers that have just been, he or she's just been a couple of years out of college, what they're looking at, what their content needs are. This is a big part of this survey compared to anything else you've probably seen. And then just to give you a definition, from now on, you'll see us break the respondents into 2 categories. Career pros are with 6 or more years of experience, and a next gen is a younger engineer with 5 or fewer years of experience. So that's what's a really interesting part of this survey, is to see, are there media needs, the way they consume not just media, but all kinds of information, right? Is it different? And yeah. All right, let's go. Next slide. Okay, so here is their field of speciality. Obviously, we're looking at the electronics engineering cohort, but even within that group, some will, split themselves between, say they're a hardware engineer, R&D, design engineer, power engineer. So we actually got all of these, and you can see the 2 bars. The dark bar is career pro, and the lighter colored blue, turquoise, I guess, is next gens. And so you can see, it's a pretty good representation of engineers across many disciplines. I think it kind of
that's one of the things that I like about this survey, is that it's not just the double E level exclusively. You've got a lot of mechanical engineers and software engineers here. So it is a pretty broad view to the total global engineering mindset.
Yes, absolutely. All right, and so this slide is kind of fun, which is always, what are they interested in pursuing? In terms of what do they need to, and the way I interpret this is, what do they need to learn about? It's interesting that PCB layout, something that's been around from the beginning of electronics time, is still number 1. And then we've got, power design, obviously power, huge category now with every, that we're embarking on this, what I call the second great electrification. And so there's a lot of interest in power, but also analog. And Joel, if you highlight Career Pro or Next Gens, you can see there are some differences.
Yeah.
The Next Gens were more interested in control systems, and there's wiring in there. So there are differences by the generational stuff. There's some things that interest Next Gen engineers more than the Career Pros.
Yeah, the data analytics difference is interesting as that becomes more front and center.
Yeah. So we always ask this question, which is what are the most pressing challenges in your current design work? And I've been doing this surveys for a very long time across many different media brands, and it's all actually number one and number two have not changed in all the years I've been doing this, which is time and money, time to stay on schedule. And it's similar for even next gen engineers understand this, working in engineering and in engineering teams, it's about time and money. And that that has not changed, Joel. I mean, all the years we've been doing this.
Well, I was particularly interested in seeing number three, the engineering staff lacks needed skills. So for all of you marketers on the call, that's clearly an opportunity for us to generate compelling educational and tutorial content, right? So if they're lacking needed skills, that's an opportunity for manufacturers to step up and provide that education. And those of us who do it the best are the ones that are going to create the best relationships with their brands.
Yeah.
I also thought that counterfeit components was interesting. We'll have to watch this. This is a problem for some of our clients where they're saying that their customers are asking for more traceability on where components and materials are coming from. I don't know if other people are seeing that, but we're not surprised to see that making the list, and I would expect next year that might even move up the rankings of pressing challenges.
Right. So next slide. So this was, you can see it again, the lighter bar are the next gen engineers. So who is a primary decision maker? You can see that next gen engineers aren't as confident in being primary decision makers, but there's a pretty much agreement that it's on the second set of bars. It's engineers work in teams. There's not, they all get input from each other. There's not, it's not the VP of engineering just sort of, telling people coming from on high that you're going to use this component or you're going to use this software. Engineers definitely work as teams and have input.
So David, I thought it was interesting to see sometimes people discount the younger members of the team as not really decision makers, but you see next gen at these three important decision-making stages. So that is not a group to overlook and just talk to the more senior members in the room. They're drivers too, in many ways equal in stature.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to jump into the design process now, how they go about working on designs. And this slide, I think, is one of the biggest changes. This is one of the key takeaways, is that for the first time in all the years I've been doing this survey, the sources of information, manufacturer websites, has risen to the top. So this was a shocker to me because it's always in the past been search engines, meaning basically Google. But so there's something going on in the business now, which we all need to pay attention to, which is the manufacturer's own website is so important, because we've all seen this data about people say 70%, 80%, 60% of the marketing happens. People are on engineers are on websites, and it's happening on manufacturers' websites. And this, to me, this is a big takeaway.
Yeah, this is the biggest slide for me every year in this survey. So David, I also was stunned to see manufacturer websites in the number one slot ahead of search. But that really kind of goes to what we're seeing and hearing at conferences and from some of our clients. We sent people recently to the HubSpot inbound conference, and one of the speakers there said that he expects Google's traffic to decline by 20 to 25%. And we're starting to see that as people are using Perplexity and Gemini and even ChatGPT. A lot of, if you use ChatGPT, it's prompting you now to make ChatGPT your primary search engine, your default search engine. So Google has a lot of competition for that search those search eyeballs. But one of the things that we're seeing for our clients is you do a search on Google, and what do you see? You don't see the ads at the top. You don't even see organic searches at the top. You see the AI answer. That's a game changer for digital marketing and for search marketing, right? That's why they call it AEO instead of SEO, for artificial engine optimization. So what that means is that people are getting the answer that they want at the top of the search engine and not clicking over to our client's website. So the game at hand is to get included in that, to get our content included alongside of that AI answer. It's just a matter of time before Google begins to sell off that space to us to replace the paid search traffic that they're probably going to lose.
Yeah, and other people, when I've had conversations with marketers, when I've showed them this slide, it's people say, well, the Google search experience has become not just AI overviews, but if you look at the organic results sometimes are pushed to the bottom of the page.
Yes.
So the whole Google search experience has changed. I also think there's a little bit of brand in this as well, Joel, in that brand, some manufacturers have built very informative, useful, credible websites that an engineer knows. So this is where brand comes. Oh, if I go here to this site, I know I'm going to probably get a good chance to find what I want about this particular technology. So it just goes to show the content marketing piece, Joel, you mentioned that earlier, is so critical.
Brand awareness is a big deal. Brand awareness, we know from A/B testing that if you've got 2 paid search ads on Google, for example, people are going to be more likely to click on the brand that they know. And that goes for all types of advertising and digital marketing and content that you put out there. So yeah, brand's a big deal. Probably not surprised to hear us say that. I will tell you one other thing that's interesting about this manufacturer website slide, and I know we're spending a fair amount of time on it, but it's a big deal, that the search bar tool on many manufacturer websites is awful. So for anybody on this call, if you're in charge of managing your company's website, go start to do some searches and invest in a better search tool that doesn't provide, what a lot of these tools do is they just provide an unindexed, curated mishmash of search results. It's not really very effective. So if you want your manufacturer website to show up at the top of that list and be used a lot, invest in a better search presence on your own site.
Yeah, and actually in the comments, I just spotted somebody said something about parametric search. Yes, these are complex product. I know we spend a lot of time on this. Parametric search, whoever that was, has nailed it. Very important. Engineers are looking for very specific things. They need parametric search. Joel, we better move on.
Well, I did want to ask you what you thought about that industry influencer line at the bottom. That's a new one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
and
go ahead.
We're starting to see a few. There are some. I mean, it's not like other parts of the media. We don't have many big time influencers in our market yet, but it's probably going to increase. I can only think of a couple in our industry, but it's probably something to watch, definitely.
So, and one last question on this, and I know you want to move on, but this is my favorite slide. What do you think of the trade show number here? Where is
it? Yes, you're close.
Conferences. Yeah. Where the next gen is at 6% compared to 16% for the career pro. That's a pretty big difference, right?
It is, and my theory is that in the US particularly is that they don't it's expensive for an engineer to go to an event. And so they don't send the entire engineering team. They probably send the more senior engineers. And so it's bad news for the next gens. They don't get to go to the shows. In fact, we've got other research that shows engineers only go to 1 or 2 events a year. And, so a lot of companies are spending a lot on in-person trade shows. And yet you're not really reaching very deeply into that engineering team. You might get one engineer is going to go to 1 show or 2 shows a year. But that was a new question as well put in by Tara. And I think it's, shows you do. Obviously, we can have a whole different conversation about trade shows, but very interesting.
Yeah. And so when you all get the copy of this presentation, you'll see in the bottom right here, if you want to look at what the results were last year, you've got a button that can take you there.
Okay, so types of information that they want, this hasn't really changed in a long, long time. Data sheets are absolutely critical. App notes. The next gens don't seem to have as much interest. They probably don't know, they haven't been around long enough to understand what these things are and how they're useful for them. There was one, which was white papers, was a lot lower for next gens. I don't know if Joel, I'm not sure if they understand what a white paper is. I don't
It
know.
could be, an older, marketing term. We've all been talking about white papers
Yeah.
for a few decades, and maybe they're just not as familiar with it. I thought it was, I thought that was interesting. I will tell you that even though webinars is kind of in the middle of the list, we find webinars just like this, and just like EETech offers its advertisers, we think webinars are a killer content tool, and really very important to most programs that we're running. And we are sticking data sheet buttons all over all over company websites. If you've got data sheets, we encourage people to make them front and center, because that's what a technical buyer wants to see quickly and easily going away on these websites.
Right. So, okay, thanks, Joel. This one also is one of the very important takeaways. This is probably the second biggest takeaway from the survey and a big surprise to me this year is that product comparisons went to the top. And a lot of marketers have weighed in and said, well, what is going on here? Was it the COVID, the shortage? People really need to understand, what is a functional equivalent part? What is a drop-in part? Can I use this rather than this? There's something clearly going on here about the way people look for products and select products. And Joel, I'll let you talk. I have another theory too, but maybe a good time
Well,
for you to
yeah, I mean, the last year product comparisons was number 6. So for it to go
Right.
to the number 1 spot is really a big deal. The content that we write on X versus Y and A versus B, man, those blogs are the ones that generate the best response. People love that stuff. They have an appetite for it.
Yeah. And my theory is I call this the YouTube effect. If any of you are looking for some kind of product, the easiest thing to do is go on YouTube, you see a video, they're comparing product A with product B. And so we talk about that sort of shopping process or the research for a technical product ahead of time. You're going to be looking at videos. You're going to be looking at a lot of different types of content. And so I think that has become part of the culture now, if you want. Maybe culture is the wrong word, but it's part of our process now, Joel. That's what I think. People
Well, I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and look at new product tutorials and walkthroughs. That's up close to the top of the list. It is interesting. There still seems to be an appetite for written tutorials and entry-level technical articles. We've all been told that nobody reads anything anymore. Maybe that's not so true among this technical buying audience. You think?
Yeah, I think for technical information, you have to read it. You have to go dig into it. It's not, I know we're overwhelmed with information these days, but the technical information, I think, is on a kind of a different category. But yeah, this is a good one. So this is a big one. All right, and here's a new one as well, which is I really believe that this goes to manufacturer's website. Which digital design tools are important to you? So digital design tools, simulation, CAD tools, reference designs, PCB design. So obviously tools are very important to the engineer's existence, right? They spend their days in these tools, whether it's all the way from, so the ability to get, it goes a little bit to product comparisons, and is this the right product for me? What products will fit my needs? Whether they're coming at it, will it work in my design? Is it going to fit on the board? Is there a reference design that's used it, before that might fit that what I'm doing, so I can look at it? Is it the right power consumption? Is it available? That's where, so there's so much going on. I think engineers now expect digital design tools, whether they're coming from, EDA, CAD vendors, or from the manufacturers themselves. I think this is a critical piece of design today.
And it's hard to do, right? I know you guys at EETech, you spend a lot of time creating these tools for your advertisers, websites that offer configurators and calculators and reference designs and CAD downloads. That's a big deal. And we find that companies really value the leads that come from those types of tools.
Right, because they're further down the design process.
Absolutely
obviously.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely right.
Right. And so
well, let's talk about AI.
AI, yeah, we had to talk about AI. So yeah, it's definitely, this survey was concluded in November, and we're seeing from year on year a big increase in AI use. This is career pros, and so and then so that's the 2024 is a darker bar here, but if you click on next gens, Joel, right, you'll see much more next gen engineers, much higher usage in 2024 than in 2023, 47.
Right.
So, and I believe that obviously we're in March now, this is done in November. I believe this is just going to skyrocket. It's clearly the next gens are more likely to use AI, but the career pros are going, like I said, they work in teams, right? They're going to hear about it every day. So
one of the most interesting things about this study is everybody, when you talk to people about AI, it's very much of a world defined by chat GPT and documentation. But on the next slide, we're gonna talk about, well, engineers are using it in a far more powerful way.
Right. Yeah. And so where are the actual, those that are using AI? So this is the cohort that are using AI. You can see that, they're using it across the design process. It's interesting, next gens and detailed design, maybe they're getting some AI function in their design tools, or, that is letting them do parts of the design through AI. So this is going to change everything, I think. And look at one that surprised me was career pros who use it for software development. So that, I mean, there are all these, procrastinators talking about how it's going to change software development. But if you could write some functional code very quickly using AI, you could save an enormous amount of time in a design.
Yeah, absolutely. It's no surprise to see documentation so close to the
Yes.
top. That's the gimme application for AI. But engineers who are focused on writing a manual and using AI are going to get left behind by their counterparts who are using it in all these
Yep.
other areas.
It's so AI is going to be a big game changer. And what types of AI are they using? You can see the chatbot, chat GPT, but there you go. Second is code generation, which reinforces what we just said. Design assistance. Now this is interesting because we're talking about what manufacturers, semiconductor companies, what should they be doing about AI? And I think a lot of that is going to be is design assistance, right? Because we're going to get into that in a minute, which is how can the engineers trying to get something done, how can AI get them to the answer, faster? I think this is a whole area of that is going to go crazy in the next year.
So let's talk about some restrictions.
So are you prohibited? And these are the ones who are not using AI. And so the career pros, so it was, they're smallish numbers, but I don't know this is interesting. I have not heard of people, I've heard of people using AI and getting strange results, but I haven't heard of many companies actually, maybe somebody can throw it in the chat, have you heard of companies saying that their engineering teams or development teams are not allowed to use AI?
Well, so when I saw this question, it made me laugh because I'm an old guy. So I remember when YouTube first came out and a lot of companies had restrictions preventing people from using YouTube. And it's just kind of funny today because that's so embedded in how we all work.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, but the other theory behind this question is I know a lot of people are using ChatGPT and they're using it in a rogue manner in their companies without training or licenses. And what we've all heard are anecdotes of people using ChatGPT to run an analysis, and they'll take confidential records and upload it to chat and ask it a question. Well, that's shared and ingested with the internet. So you really have to be very careful about that. I think some companies are trying to begin to put policies and training in place to prevent against that. That's my theory on this question.
Yeah. Okay. We'll keep going and we can get questions at the end. Okay. So this is on the other side of the fence in a way. This is, are you going to be using AI, designing AI into a product or a project that you're working on? So, everybody's talking about edge AI, AI for certain applications, which is going to be really big for the embedded business. For Embedded World is next week in Nuremberg. So if anybody's going to be there, I'll be there. Nice to say hi. But I think edge AI is going to be huge. I think. And so, so this will be engineers not just using AI to do the design, but designing AI into the products that they make. That's my theory. Okay, so
Here's my sad
yes, there
slide.
you go, Joel. This is
Go
for
ahead,
you.
David. Well, so I'll just say that how suspicious are you of marketing value if you believe AI is being used to create the messaging? 52% say that they are very suspicious. So, we have talks about this internally. Chat GPT is not a copy and paste type of tool. And for people to be doing that and using raw chat GPT or AI generated content and putting that out to the world, they're doing themselves a disservice. And I don't know about you, but we've all been around AI long enough that we can kind of tell when AI has written something, and it's a huge turnoff. I'll tell you, it always begins with the same phrase: in today's demanding environment. Okay, AI, right? I don't have to go any farther than that. If I see a lot of bullet points, if I see Paramount and certain AI trigger words, I know that it's been written by AI, and after a while,
Yeah.
you can kind of detect the structure of it. So marketers, do not overuse AI as a copy and paste tool. It is a great first draft only, but it's a disservice to the company and to the content generation industry to do that. This
Yeah.
is a great warning sign for us.
Yeah, I agree, because I was on LinkedIn the other day and I wrote a post, and there's a little button there now in LinkedIn. It says rewrite with AI, and I did it. It was terrible. It made me
Yeah.
sound like, I mean, we all have our own ways of saying things, and you're right. It just came up. It was just so bland, and it was terrible, I thought. So that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's not going to get better, but today you can tell it's AI, Joel. I completely
Yeah,
agree.
yeah, you really can tell, and look, there's an important aspect of authenticity in marketing. We want to present our companies and our technical experts as authentic, and overusing AI as a content generator is going to hurt us in the long run.
Great.
Okay?
Okay, so now we're going to move on to sourcing. Is that how do they go about acquiring information about products? And yes, this another question which reinforces, where do they go for new product information? The manufacturer's website. Again, it reinforces the earlier point, and it's because they know that is the source of the truth, right? That is where the information is going, the best information is going to come from. So as you can see, though, it beat out Google search. So it was, I think this, we kind of went into this in depth earlier on, but I think this just reinforces it. But you can see the other respondents there.
Yeah, and don't misunderstand. I mean, we're not saying that Google search isn't important. We're not saying that Google's not the big dog and driver of so much of our revenue. And here you kind of see that, right? Where
Yeah,
Next Gen says Google search is number one, and that's the equal number to the manufacturer's website. All we're really saying here is that the manufacturer's website has become dominant and prominent and needs to get that level of investment.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this one, product design factors, obviously product specs. For some reason, this one, the next gens were more sensitive to price. I don't know why that is. Maybe it was. I don't know. But
I don't know why that is either, but I will tell you as a marketer, this one warms my heart the way the AI suspicion one darkened the room for me. So I love seeing what's the primary deciding factor in choosing new products. Company reputation and brand loyalty. That's awesome, right? It's the world is not defined only by price and lead time. And I know that's a big deal, but after you make sure that the specs of your product are going to fit your application, brand loyalty and company reputation play a role. And this really validates that message for marketers.
yeah, I've done focus groups in the past where you ask engineers how they choose products, and a lot of it goes to product specs. But when you go back and ask them, well, what happens if this product was from this company or from this company? Engineers say it's all about the specs, Joel, but you're right. When you scratch the surface, oh yeah, I know the company's reputation and brand loyalty is huge. They always tend to say, "Oh, that doesn't matter. I'm looking for the best," but they kind of suppress it, I think. But there you go.
They suppress it. It pains them to say it.
Yes, exactly. So this slide, we're talking about manufacturer websites. When they're looking at products, where are they going to get assistance with the design? And it was amazing that 57% of next gens are contacting manufacturers for assistance. So maybe it's because they don't have the experience yet, or they don't know how to, there's certain things, it's a knowledge gap, but they do expect manufacturers to be able to respond to them. Now, I've seen other surveys where they want to do it via email, or I've seen some say chat, but they do expect manufacturers to give them design assistance.
So I challenged the marketers on the call earlier to make sure that go take a look at what your site search results look like and see if that needs to be improved. The next question that I would put out there is pick up the phone and call your call center. Go to your chat and start doing chat. So make sure that your customer assistance channels, digital customer assistance channels as well, are up to par, because the manufacturer website and the manufacturer role is a big deal in how people are going to make purchase decisions.
Yep. Okay. So, what is your preferred method for purchasing parts? Obviously, distributors' websites, which, hasn't changed. Obviously, there are, what we used to call catalog distributors. You can get pretty much everything you need from one place. So that's dominant in our industry. It isn't the same in other industries. But this is we've seen manufacturers' websites. Some companies are starting to do e-commerce, particularly on their own websites. And there are various reasons for that. One is control of the customer. They want to know who's interested in their products. Obviously, some distributors are very good at what they do, but if you're a manufacturer, to know who's looking at products, wants to buy your products, having some level of e-commerce on your own website, I think is a new area that we're all going to be looking at in the next year or two.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it is interesting that when you look at manufacturer websites, the Career Pro was lower than the Next Gen was lower than the Career Pro. That not by a lot, but it surprised me a little. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, and so when you're looking at a distributor, we've gone on from, distributors we know obviously lead in this area. Why do they go to distributors? Well, the Career Pros know that some of these distributors have got a lot of, if you go to some of the broadline online distributors, you're going to, pretty much everything you're looking for in that design, you're going to find it there, probably. One of the things that was interesting on this one was certification of products. Next Gen seemed to be more sensitive to this. And maybe they'd bought bad part or something from another player. I don't know. That was an interesting. This one I can't explain.
Maybe that goes back to that counterfeit products comment that was on an earlier slide. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the certification. So some companies really play up the manufacturing traceability of materials and components. This could be tied to people trying to make sure that their supply chains are safe and reliable and not going to be subject to any interruptions. But that really was interesting to see certification, the #1 response for the Next Gens.
Somebody was asking a question about what 20, the little blue ball in the bottom right-hand corner is not, this slide is not, this is 2024 day 20. We just have that there. When you get a copy of this, you click on that blue box, it will show you what the 2023 numbers were. There's a couple of areas which Tara put in that if there's a big difference year on year, she puts the blue ball, which Joel has highlighted. So I answered that question. Yep. There you go. All right. So we have some rankings here that are fun. I'm not going to go deep dive into everybody, but manufacturers' preferences, which, as you can see, the thing that jumps out at everybody from this slide is that Career Pro engineers, maybe to our earlier point, Joel, do have manufacturer preferences. And as you can see from this, analog device, the big semi houses have got ADI, TI, Microchip, ST, Molex, obviously connectors, but they are looking for, obviously they have some, I don't know if you can say this is a brand loyalty chart. You're a marketer, Joel. What do you think? Is this a kind of rankings?
Well, I do think that there's a brand loyalty play here. When we've done the same type of survey and we ask people who do you prefer in unaided recall, who do you prefer to buy, this product category from? And we separate the answers out by generation. This is exactly what we find, that the career pros, the more seasoned engineers in the survey, regardless of company or product category, they're almost locked in brand loyalty. They've defined who they're going to buy from, and getting them to switch to somebody else is very, very difficult unless there's a true dramatic product innovation or spec performance or company performance issue. So if you're trying to grow market share, the easiest area to grow is the next gen, because you can see from this chart and the other surveys that we've done too bear this out. They're not yet locked into preferring a specific company or brand.
Yes. There is one anomaly here, which is amongst next gens is Intel. And I think this may be, they built a gaming PC or it's on their lap, they just know Intel from that. But obviously we all know about Intel's woes. So I think that's a bit of an anomaly, but I agree with you, Joel. You can see the career pros clearly have brand preference over the next gens. You see the two dramatically different because they haven't established that relationship with the customer, with the company yet, which is going to take time. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. And then distributors.
But you don't see that gap with distributors, right? What does that mean?
That's a good question. It's a little bit, but obviously you can see that Mouser and DigiKey are tied with career pros here. But next gens, because it's an international survey, you'll see AliExpress, which is which is a rising star amongst next gens have more experience with AliExpress, and that may be if they were working for their college projects or it's very inexpensive. But distributor. Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. I don't know.
I have to think about that. David, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I just noticed the big difference in gap. You see Mouser and DigiKey have the same dynamic, right?
Right.
Career Pro locked into brand preference on Mouser and DigiKey. But you don't see that big gap throughout here that you did on the prior slide.
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Well,
And
so we're going to go take some questions here now that we've gotten on chat. This is David's contact information and my contact information if you'd like to reach out afterwards to talk about something in addition. And let's run some of the comments and questions. I have one here. What is driving Millennial and Gen Z engineers to pursue greater levels of expertise? David, I think that's a question directed at you. Don't mean to put you on the spot there, but
I just think that if you're a younger engineer and design team and you're going to have a career in electronics, you've got to stay educated and you've got to keep up with what's happening in the industry. That's quite a hard question to answer. I'm not a psychologist.
Right. Think about that in a minute, and let me jump on to some others. So this is a big one, and I referred to it a little bit earlier. What can companies do to incorporate their content into AI results on Google? Do you have an answer for that, David? You want me to jump in?
I think, Joel, you know more. I think it's just got to be really good content. But Joel, you probably know more about it than I do.
That's right. And it is frustrating that when you go to Google and go online to all the forums and ask, well, what's the trick for getting included in there? And there aren't really a lot of answers other than make sure your content is better than everybody else. But, Google has published their guidelines, EEAT, which stands for expertise, authority, trustworthiness, and I forgot the second E. But what that means is that you have to have a content that is unbiased, technically deep, technically robust, and deep. You can't go out with a bunch of 200, 300 word blogs and expect that that's going to win the day in AI. The other thing that you're seeing with AI is you see by the AI answers documents that it identifies that you might want to read more. Well, we've had a fair amount of success in getting included in there. And what we do is we'll look at Google Search Console. will identify the questions that people ask in Google Search Console, and then we will write content that mirrors those questions, so that when people are doing those queries, we'll pull that from Google Search Console. People also ask, what you see on Google Pages. We have another tool, the software tool that we use called Demand Jump, which also gives us a content roadmap to build the content clusters that we need. So it's a long answer to saying nothing's changed. It's all based on your content and the strength and quality of it and the depth of it. I don't know if that makes any sense, David, but that's
Yeah.
the that we see out there.
Yeah, when I've seen the AI overviews and I look at those things, see where is that content coming from? I did it this morning, and this particular company, yeah, I know they are the world experts on that technology, so that made sense to me. So I'm very likely to click on it, and so yeah, I agree.
So David, here's one. How do we maintain engagement with engineering audiences over the long term?
Well, that kind of goes to what we were talking about. It's got to be the quality of the website, the quality of the content. I mean, engineers are always looking for new products because they've always got problems with the design. This is using too much power, or it's too big, or it's not fast enough. So they have a curiosity and a need for more education and information. So it's just staying ahead, if that's possible, of the engineers' needs. That's why surveys like this are so useful to people. It's like, what are they looking for, right? So, you've just got to get in their mind, right, and just figure out what they want.
I think that's true. Gardner Group did a study a few years ago about the complex sale, and I talked about that a little bit at the beginning. And the way they map the buyer's journey is fascinating. Everybody thinks of a lead funnel and the buyer's journey as this smooth, linear process, right? Well, what they map is anything but smooth and linear. They've got a team of people that move through that decision-making process. At the beginning, they're trying to validate the concept. There might be 2 engineers at the beginning of the process, and then there might be 6 engineers in the middle of the process, and then there might be 2 engineers at the end. So that team expands and contracts, and the people on it change over time, and it's characterized by stops and starts. So what do you have to do as a marketer trying to reach that busy engineer? You have to be in front of them during a long period of time. It can't be 2 months or 3 months. It has to be measured in many, many months, depending on whatever your sales cycle is. And it has to involve multiple channels. It can't just be, there's no magic bullet. It can't just be webinars. It can't just be your website. It can't just be advertising. It can't just be search. It has to be all the different channels that are going to reach and touch the total market, total addressable market that you're trying to reach. David, last question. Can you provide examples of successful marketing content campaigns targeting engineers?
Wow, we've done so many, and so have you, Joel.
Yes.
I would say, oh yes, absolutely. And the nice thing these days about all the tools we have here at EETech, we have a new AI targeting tool, so we can target the content that you write, or particular engineers in companies, geography, job title, their behavior. So yes, I would say many campaigns, and it's all about measurement, Joel, right? That's what it's all about. Is that you write the content. So yeah, I could come up with 20, but yes.
So when we look at that measurement, we see the same thing. We see webinars having a tremendous ROI payoff. We see an almost insatiable demand for tutorial videos, 1 to 2 minute videos. And that's not just product marketing videos. That's a lot of back end. How do I do this? How do I solve those types of things that will then link to larger long form content. And then it goes without saying that engineers are passionate to find as many case histories and application examples as they can. The last one I'll throw out there has been working for 30 years, and it's a handbook or a guidebook. Engineers just love handbooks and guidebooks. They are at the top of the list for any type of measurement that we do, at least for what type of content people find popular and most valuable. Okay, David, Any rebuttal to that? Any closing thoughts?
No, Joel, I just want to thank everybody who came on, and we really have fun with these surveys. So I think, somebody was asking my email if you want to get in touch with me. It's David Blaser, all one word, at eetech.com. And it was in the chat. But yeah, I mean, if people have got ideas for research, or they want to, there are things that we're always interested in. We want to get better at this. This is the second annual, and hopefully we'll see you at the third annual this time next year. And we'll all learn from each other. So
thanks everybody for joining. Thank you to my good friends at EETech for involving us and allowing us to bring this to our audience as well. It's my favorite research survey, and can't thank everybody enough.